Hey everyone, I did say at the end of the last video that was probably going to be the last thing we talked about when it came to the plague, but I lied. Sorry. There is one additional small piece that I just want to go over and talk through just very, very briefly. And it has to do sort of with the way that we've been having these discussions, the way that we formatted the way that we've spoken about this, and the way we're going to continue doing this, right? Existentialism, absurdism, when we use them as philosophies, when we talk about them in relationship to work, like the plague, like the myth of Sisyphus that we're going to be looking at as sort of an intro to the philosophy of the absurd, and No Exit, which is going to be the play that we're going to be looking at in a couple weeks, just sort of explore the beginnings of the absurd. What we really need to remember is that, for us, and I did mention this briefly at the end of the last video, we are not necessarily espousing this belief. We're not saying that we are now existentialist absurdists, right? That it's a philosophy that we're looking at. And I think the important thing about the next couple of weeks as we move into these philosophies, in theory more than in theory and in practice, right? As we look at the way that we can evaluate literature based on them, is really important to be able to distance ourselves from it, to be able to really look at things from a different point of view, to really practice seeing what other points of view are going to look like, as we explore them, and to see how we can understand, right, things from a different point of view, even if it is not our own. Going into the myth of Sisyphus, as we are next week, this is especially important because the myth of Sisyphus espouses an idea, an ideology that can be seen as very difficult for some people, right? We are going to be talking about the problem of suicide. We're going to be talking about the problem of despair and depression, and it's going to be important to know exactly sort of what Camus is saying and what he is talking about, while at the same time taking care of ourselves, right? Our own mental health. Context is very important here as well. Part of what we're going to be talking about next week is that Camus is creating this philosophy in the wake of two major World War events. He is looking at a revelation of absolutely horrific things happening in Europe in the Second World War, talking about the Holocaust, right? And that this is one of the things that really gives rise to a lot of this bleakness in philosophy. If existentialism is something that really talks about our own personal responsibility, absurdism is a belief that in a way also talks about our responsibility, but also how we deal with the negatives that happen in life. If Sartre agrees that we are going to run into this existential dread and this existential anguish, Camus says, well then, what do we do? How do we deal with it, right? Because there are two ways to deal with anything like that, either giving up or continuing forward, right? And it's a pretty stark contrast, right? And we are going to be talking about that next week. It is important to know that, and to be able to understand that we are going to be dealing with certain ideologies that may be a little bit of a trigger for some people, right? Talking about depression, talking about anxiety and things like that. So please make sure, right, that as we are moving forward, that especially in this next week or two, that we talk a lot about this with groups, that we really have discussions that are going to be helpful, and that if we need to pull back from a discussion with a group, right, and to talk about mental health issues, that is also an important thing to do. So I just wanted to put that out and discuss that before I put out the videos for next week, right, so that we know sort of what we're heading into. Be aware this week we are going to be talking about our group assignments. Those are going to be assigned in the next week or so, since census date is now come, and pretty much we've, at least as far as faculty are concerned, have an idea of who's in the class, who's not in the class, and we can start dividing students up into the permanent groups. I think the groups that as they are right now are going to stay as they are, so your group will be the group that you're going to be continuing forward with. Now that I know how many I've got, and things didn't change much, good thing, we will be assigning those as we assigning the group projects for next week. So you should know what you need to do by the end of this week, beginning of next week. Okay,